Hello guys, welcome back to Custom Gamer. Once again we're playing Mission Improbable 3. This is the final part of this mod, part 4. So if you're joining us now, check the annotation at the very beginning of the video to go back to part 1 if you want to watch from the beginning. If not, then let's go. So this puzzle gave me a lot of problems. I think it's because it's the first time you see the mechanic and you're just kind of expected to understand it straight away. That's what it felt like to me. I always say that when you introduce a new mechanic in your level, you should try and introduce it slowly over time so the player has to understand it. If you introduce it all at once, like this puzzle does, then it has to explain itself really well in order to work that way, and I think this doesn't quite do it. I mean, all the visual elements are there, so you see the canisters going through the force field and it creates the little silhouette as it goes through, but for me it just wasn't clear what that silhouette was. I just thought that was a nice visual for the canisters going through the force field and thought nothing more of it. As you'll see here in this clip here, I thought that I would have to perhaps align the canisters next to each other and then jump on top of them to use them as sort of a platform to jump to somewhere else. That was my line of thinking the first time through this puzzle. So as you'll see here, I've stopped the canisters there, and because I'm terrible, I actually missed the final jump and fall to my death. Yay! So we're going to skip ahead a bit now. This is after about 3 or 4 more attempts at trying to get back up and using these as a platform. I realised it wasn't working, so I decided to fiddle with the controls a bit more, because I thought it was kind of interesting that you had 2 controls for the same kind of mechanism. So I thought maybe there was something to that, and eventually I work out that yeah, if you put both canisters in the force field, it creates a really wide gap that you can pass through. So I really like the idea of that. I think it's a great mechanic. Again, I just think it's a shame that it's introduced all at once like this, and it ended up frustrating me a bit because I didn't understand it first time. So yeah, I think I would have perhaps introduced it more slowly over time, like perhaps have a puzzle before this where it introduces the mechanic to you in a kind of safe environment, so you can understand how it works. I mean, that's just kind of my personal preference with all kind of puzzle mechanics, because generally I'm terrible at puzzles in games like this, so I really like it when I can kind of work out how they operate at my own pace. And then as my skill level grows with that kind of puzzle mechanic, the game can make it harder over time. And you know, I'm comfortable with the difficulty going forwards. That's why I like Portal and Portal 2 so much, and I always say that, like, if you're going to put a puzzle mechanic in your map, you should play both of those games and really think about how they're teaching you the puzzle mechanics. Because portals, while they're simple to use, they can, you know, the complexity really ramps up over time in those games, and it's not frustrating, which is the critical point which I want to bring forward to you guys, is that when you play Portal and Portal 2, even when you get to the really complex stuff near the end of those games, you understand all the mechanics so fully that it's not frustrating when you come across these really complex puzzles. And I think in MI2, while this puzzle was simple, you didn't understand it fully. At least I should say I didn't understand it fully. I mean, maybe other people had absolutely no problem at all, but yeah. Now this next area is really nice. I'm going to talk more about the combat when we get to it, but again, just from a visual standpoint, I really like this area. Again, lots of 45-degree angles and kind of crisscrossing beams and all this kind of stuff. Really nice combined architecture. Though it does feel a little bit weird that you had to jump down from this platform. Again, it's one of those things, like when I jumped down here, I kind of felt that I'd gone the wrong way, or that I'd broken the map in some fashion. It's kind of bizarre. I guess it's kind of a symptom of you know, so many shooters these days have kind of have the way kind of spelled out for you, and you know, bright glowing waypoints, as tends to be the case in so many shooters these days. But again, we've got to the point now where even just taking a small leap off a balcony to a balcony below feels wrong. That's kind of, it's horrible that it feels like that. Not a criticism of the map, but just in general shooters. I generally prefer it a lot more when you can just explore freely and not feel like you've gone the wrong way. Yeah, that's a symptom of the times, I suppose. But yeah, you'll notice here there's a lot of kind of bridges and railings and things like that. But in these intersections here, you've got these like taller barriers in these intersections, and these are critical for the combat here, because you're fighting against Combine and Hunters, and Combine of course are all hit scan enemies. Hit scan basically means that when they shoot, their bullets travel instantly to the destination, so you cannot dodge them. The only reason they will not hit you is if their accuracy is bad. Luckily, Combine can't shoot for shit, generally. Which is generally how you survive all the hit scan enemies in Half-Life, is that they have very poor accuracy. But yeah, when you think about that, when you're fighting many hit scan enemies, you need cover, otherwise the combat kind of breaks. And this is what these intersections are for. You'll notice the barriers here are a lot taller than everything else. You can actually hide behind them to block line of sight. And if these weren't here, this combat would be so annoying. But luckily they are. I'm sure it's a very deliberate choice by Magnar to include these things here at just the right height to conceal the player. But yeah, it's a common issue I find in a lot of Half-Life 2 maps, is that if you're fighting a lot of Combine, there's generally not enough cover. And you really need to take the hit scan element of Combine soldiers into account when you're designing combat spaces for them. So you need lots of cover and or lots of kind of corridors with right angles and things like that, so you can break line of sight with them when you need to. This is a really nice example of, it's a nice open space, so you get lots of long sight lines, but there's lots of cover, lots of places to hide from Combine also. So yeah, really nice. So I wasn't really quite sure what was happening at first. When you activate that button, all the headcrab canisters start launching from the train that's parked above us there on the train track. And it kind of starts a rock slide in here as well, which is a really nice kind of additional touch. But yeah, when all the canisters first started shooting, I wasn't quite sure what was actually happening. I hadn't really paid enough attention to the train, I suppose, but it makes sense now that I watch the video. But at the time I was like, what the hell's going on? Oh my god. Yeah, it's nice seeing all the damage here as well, and as you'll notice when we go back to other sections of the map, there's kind of headcrab canisters lodged in walls and things like that that have broken through. It's a really nice touch. This is kind of the diversion the NPC was talking about earlier. The Stephen Hawking lookalike, who's saying go into the combat base and cause a diversion. Well, I think the diversion has been caused now. So now we just have to get out of here with our lives, which would be nice. And it's nice the way it kind of changes up the gameplay, like using the headcrab canisters as a kind of a driving force to power this next part of the gameplay, where instead of just fighting Combine, you're now fighting zombies and Combine zombies. So again, it's a nice visual explanation for why there are suddenly zombies in this Combine base. And again, it varies up the gameplay, so it's nice. It's a nice change of pace. Many zombies. I'm not quite sure what's going on with the door here. You can hear it opening and closing rapidly. I don't know if that's a bug or whether it's meant to demonstrate that the Combine facility is broken. I don't know, it just felt a bit odd to me. So here you'll notice there's a headcrab canister lodged in here. This is the area we were in before with the 45-degree angles and all the generators down there. I didn't actually recognise it at first, I thought it was a completely new area, but nope. Now, the thing you're meant to notice here is that one of the catwalks above has fallen down and you can kind of jump onto it to progress. That it's not really highlighted in the environment very well. I mean, you've got the kind of power cables there, which is, I suppose it's meant to grab the player's attention that, you know, look up here, there's something there, but I really don't think it's quite strong enough. I honestly think I fluked it here, just went around there and saw the thing falling down and jumped up on it. But I wonder if a lot of players kind of got stuck here and didn't notice that. That would be my worry about that. I don't think the visual's quite strong enough. I think maybe if it had some sparks coming off it or something like that, perhaps some flashing warning lights or something. And yeah, I derped it. The reason I jumped there is because I wasn't quite sure how to progress here. Now I notice all the cross beams underneath here. Yeah, I actually got some. This doesn't normally happen to me in games, but I actually got some fairly serious vertigo here. It's really bizarre. I generally don't suffer from vertigo that much in games. It's more kind of occasional motion sickness, so even then it's fairly rare. It's normally down to like low field of views or some kind of movement when you're in vehicles in games. Sometimes gets to me, but never really vertigo. But here, a really strong vertigo. It's actually quite bizarre. I don't really know what caused it, because again, it's just a bottomless pit with fades to black kind of thing. Yeah, interesting. Maybe it's the fact that with the train going overhead that shakes the view that did it. Yeah, interesting. So yeah, we're kind of back at the entrance where we came into the map. So I like the way that you're revisiting old areas from new perspectives. Again, obviously a lot of maps do backtracking and things like that, but this is backtracking technically. You're coming into old areas from new angles and experiencing new gameplay in them, so this is kind of the best way to do things. Because you're reusing your old areas, so again, you're saving time building your map. You're saving performance by reusing areas multiple times. But you're creating new gameplay in them as you progress, which is exactly what you want. So we're riding many lifts, climbing many ladders. I like the way you get occasional glimpses of Combine fighting zombies, so you really get the feeling that you've caused some havoc here. It's really nice. Now this next area, I think this whole area is just too dark, really. This is a really nice kind of added thing. I thought, what the hell's going on here? And then you look and see the pigeon on the end there. Again, it's just another great little quirky thing that's in the map. But yeah, this area here, this area just feels too dark. I thought I was still inside the Combine base, like inside, you know, a rocky cave. I've actually upped the gamma on this video quite considerably, so you can actually see what's happening. But yeah, when I heard the helicopter here, I was so confused because I thought I was indoors in a cave. I thought, man, this helicopter pilot's got some balls flying in here. Begin here, even when you're dropped out of the facility into the water, this area is so dark, and there's essentially zero visual cues about where you need to go. I mean, even with the gamma knocked up, it's practically black on the video. I hope you guys can see it on YouTube. Wow. Yeah, I found this really, really confusing. I was just kind of wandering aimlessly here. Yeah, it's a shame it's so dark. I mean, you've got the moonlight up there. There's lots of little tricks you can do with nighttime maps. I mean, generally this is kind of like a gaming cliche that People say that nighttime maps are always really bright, but just the lighting is blue instead of white, which is true. You know, a lot of games do that, but it's because when maps are pitch black like this, they're generally not very fun because you can't see where the hell you're going. And generally you want to use visual cues to kind of guide the player when things are dark like this. And there is a buoy in the water kind of to my left here with a red light on it, but it's nowhere near strong enough. You can barely see it from where you're dropped out of the Combine base. So yeah, I just found this whole area confusing, and you'll notice here if you've played the level, there's a destroyed pier behind me, which is how you get up into the building here. But because I'm under pressure from the gunship and I'm completely lost, I've just kind of missed that completely. Now I'm aiming... I'm wandering aimlessly around the side of the building here, and I'm just completely confused and lost as to where I should go. I mean, there's lighting in the distance there which caught my eye, but I have no idea how to get there. Now, I'm just going to cut the footage here because you don't want to see me wandering around for 20 minutes bored out of my skull trying to work out where to go. But I finally find the destroyed bit of pier, and we can carry on. I mean, aside from the lack of direction I felt there, I really like this area. I like the fact that Combine gunship is pressuring you, but yeah, I mean, when the player's under a lot of pressure, you have to really guide them with strong visuals or audio, or both. Generally works well, because you got to think of the player's mind as a resource that can be depleted when you're designing areas like this. So if you're putting the player under any kind of pressure, be it time pressure or gunship pressure like we have here, you got to think of it like you're depleting their mind resource. Okay, we'll just call it mind resource for now. But yeah, if you're putting them under pressure, like from a gunship, they're going to be thinking about that gunship and a lot less about what the level is trying to tell them to do. This is why I find a lot of chase sequences in games so annoying, because you're expected to either run away from or chase an NPC or an object, and if you're asking the player to perform complex actions while doing that, it generally ends in frustration and failure. So yeah, if you're having a sequence like this, you want to use very strong visuals to guide the player.
Good thing we heard the commotion. No time.
Now, because I went off on my tangent there, I forgot to mention the brilliant way that there are tin cans inside the rocket box here. You probably noticed me clicking the rocket resupply canister many times and nothing happened. And then when I look in there, it's just a bunch of tin cans. That's so brilliant. It plays with the player's expectations in a kind of fun way. And leaves the door open for this guy to save our asses, which I really like.
You are welcome to travel with us.
And now, of course, the mod comes to a close. And generally, I found the ending underwhelming, to be honest.
Oh, shoot.
So I like the way that the NPC takes out the chopper for us. That's cool. But as a finale, I felt it lacked. I mean, it's probably mainly because I got so lost at the end there. I just ended the level on a downer, being kind of confused and a bit frustrated. Perhaps maybe if I found the way up onto the building straight away from the water, I would have felt differently. But yeah, I just kind of felt that's lacking a bit. It wasn't really an epic final combat. It was just kind of a bit annoying for me anyway. But overall, I think this mod is a real classic. It's got some brilliant touches from start to finish. The niggles I did have with it, well, I suppose were either their personal preference of me, which you know, that's not a problem with the mod or anything. That's just me, my personal preferences. But the few minor issues I did have with the level design and things, you know, they're just kind of niggles, and things like the color correction in the final map gave me some issues. And again, it's mainly the puzzle things, like the Combine force field puzzle in the final map I didn't really like. Again, I talked about that while we were playing it, but yeah, you get the idea. But yeah, if you haven't played this map, obviously you should. If you've watched from part 1, you've seen it all now, so, you know, spoilers. But it's an absolute classic. definitely well up into the top echelon of Half-Life 2 maps, by far. I still can't decide if this is better than Minerva, but Minerva is my favourite by Half-Life 2 mod by far. This probably comes in at such a close second, it's ridiculous. So yeah, well done Magnar and Rick on creating something spectacular, and I look forward to whatever you guys are going to put out next. Alright guys, I will see you guys next time.